Hello, and thank you for joining us on this special session of our Fundamental Learning series, tailored specifically to our Allstate agents using the Extra Hands call center service. This service is set up for Allstate agencies to forward their phones to the Extra Hands call center team during their regularly scheduled business hours, possibly just to give you a moment to take a lunch break or set up a meeting or whatever you'll utilize the service for. This interactive guide is just going to go through step by step how we're going to accomplish this using a schedule and a submenu. As a quick overview, we're going to get you logged into your Fonality control panel with your admin credentials, not your user credentials. We're going to create a schedule for the Extra Hands call service. We're then going to create a submenu for the Extra Hands call center service. So basically, we're going to learn how to forward your calls. We're going to apply and test this setup, and we're going to remove the Extra Hands setup for if in the future you decide not to utilize this setup anymore. The first step is to head over to your control panel, and so you open your browser, type in the URL cp52-2.fonality.com, and get yourself logged in using your administrative username and your administrative password. Once you're logged in, you're going to notice across the top main tabs you've got Auto Answer. The secondary menu we want to go to is the Scheduler tab. By the moniker number 3 on my screen, you're going to see that there's a section to add a brand new schedule so that it'll populate down below with any existing schedules that you already have, if any at all. Let's take a closer look at how I'm going to fill out this box for my setup. So in this case, we're using our Extra Hands call service from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. During that time window, I want to forward all of my calls. So under Add a New Schedule, the name I gave it was Extra-Hands-Hours. For the description, I just called it Extra-Hands, so that I remember what it's for. The type I did weekday, the date range I did Monday through Friday, and then time range, I'm going to go ahead and change it to 12 noon, so it'll be 12 p.m., all the way to 1 p.m. And then I'm going to click the Apply. Now your schedule will be created. That is half of the battle. Now we need to go ahead and set up how we're going to forward these calls using this schedule that we just built. Under the Auto Answer tab, there's a submenu secondary tab. Go ahead and click that. We're going to make a brand new submenu specifically for this Extra Hands call center service. So under submenu name, I'm making a brand new one to match the schedule I just created called Extra-Hands. And then I'm going to click the Create a New Submenu button. What that'll do is it'll populate it below where you see the Showing Submenu section. By clicking the hourglass of the new submenu we just created for the Extra Hands, call service, we can now start to add some steps on how we want to route these calls through this submenu. By default, all it's going to have is this set incoming caller ID name to. And typically they name it the same as the submenu that you're in. This is used for companies that utilize like support, sales, marketing, so that when you get a call in HUD, you could tell that it came from sales, support, or marketing. However, we want to send these calls out to your call center, the Extra Hands call center service with your main company direct dial number. So really, I just want the following two things to happen. I want to make sure I set the caller ID as my own business main number so that the Extra Hands call center knows that it's from my office instead of really with the customer's caller ID. Then I want to forward the calls to the Extra Hands call center. Let's see how we're going to accomplish this. The box that is editable for the caller ID name, if you see that little blue question mark, you can hover over that off to the right of the field. It'll display all kinds of options that you can use for the caller ID option. What we want to use though is the num option. This is going to allow us to specify what we want our caller ID to be sent out of the system as. So we are going to use the section here in orange. It says caller ID num equals, and then your main business DID. In this case, it's my arbitrary number 877-222-5454. So once it's all set up, you basically type it out to look just like this. Capital caller ID, you put num, and then equals, and the phone number of your business. The next step, so that's the first part, right? To get the caller ID to be your main caller ID. Now we want to forward these calls. In the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to notice add a new sequence section. After step 1, we're going to utilize the forward my calls. So it's going to look something like this. Go ahead and click apply, and we'll review what the changes look like in the new submenu. So after step 1, add forward call to number and click apply. Now we have these two options. We're setting our caller ID as our main business DID, and then we're going to forward the call to the following number. Go ahead and enter your Extra Hands Call Center phone number provided to you to get these calls forwarded over to them. Click apply to save your changes, and the submenu should now be set up with 2 steps: to edit the caller ID as your main office number, and then to forward the call to the specified number. And don't worry if you make any mistakes. All of these can be changed. These submenus are merely configuration files on the back end. You can open the submenu again by going to Auto Answer Edit or Submenus and click the magnifying glass next to the Extra-Hands submenu. You could delete the submenu, you could recreate it by starting the video over and going back through the steps of creating the schedule or the submenus. So don't be too scared. Not to mention, you could always open a case with Fonality Support to get you the rest of the way if you get this set up, but it's just not quite behaving correctly. Just to let you know that. Alright, so now we've got a schedule, we've got a submenu created. Now it's time to tie these two parts together and let them start to function to forward some calls during that schedule. We're going to activate these. So the main call sequence is what's going to be utilized whenever a phone number exists in your system that is not a DID for an extension. So if a phone number belongs to an extension, it's going to ring only that phone. However, all other calls will hit this main call sequence. Go to Auto Answer, Edit Call Menu. If you see Main in the top section of your screen, you know you're at the main call sequence. Yours could look like this with multiple steps, or it may be more simple. It does not matter, and it's going to be hard to just show this one step to everybody because everybody's is going to be a little different. However, steps 1 through 7 or 8 are all just go to my closed submenu based on certain holidays. Then I've got step 9 and step 10, which actually route calls. One's based by if a phone number equals this or if a number equals this. And then my final one says just go to this queue instantly. So what I want to do is I'm going to add a step after step 8 so that it becomes step 9. So after all of the closed options, as long as I'm not closed, it's going to verify if it's during this schedule. If so, it'll forward the calls. So after step 8, I'm going to add the step of go to submenu / extension by schedule. And then I'm going to click apply. What that's going to do is it's going to add a entry into my main call sequence that looks just like this. Open the drop-down boxes. You'll notice that the first part is what submenu do you want to go to? In my case, Extra-Hands. And then it's going to say during. And then now we're going to choose the schedule that we created. Extra hands hours, or time, I guess is what it ended up being. And then go ahead and hit apply one more time so that we lock in the settings for this submenu and then this schedule. That's about it, guys. So the main point here is now we're routing all calls during that window for the schedule that we created to the submenu that sets the caller ID and forwards that call right out of the system to that extra hands call center. Test and confirm. Being in the cloud atmosphere, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for some configuration files to get fully synced, locked in place, backed up on our end, and reloaded into the core of the server. So wait a few minutes after setting this up before doing any testing. Make a test call, and it's got to be during your time frame that you set up on forwarding these calls. Otherwise, if it doesn't match the schedule, it's going to skip that step in the main call menu. So for myself, I would want to wait till 12:01 all the way up to 12:59 p.m. Monday through Friday to test this setup. What I would do is I would call my main DID from a cell phone or any other phone, and I would confirm that I end up at the extra hands call center. If the call's not going to the right place, ensure you placed the go to submenu in the right order of the sequence. If it matches a rule sooner than our schedule, I mean, it's a computer, so it's going to ask true or false as it goes down that main call menu. And as long as it hits a true, it's going to go forward with that rule. So you saw in my examples, I had a bunch of closed options that says just route the calls to a voicemail box because I'm closed. Then I added my step for my brand new extra dash hand schedule. I did that because as long as it falls into that schedule, I want it to take that route. And then I left all my default routes below it. That way, if it matches the schedule for our extra hands menu, it'll forward that call directly out, no questions asked. It should work like a charm. If I have a rule that says, go ahead and start ringing some phones before this rule, it's going to start ringing some phones and it will never get to this step. Keep that in mind when you take a look at that main call sequence. Well, now we are utilizing this service, everything's working fantastically, but what if we want to get rid of it? What if we're either going to suspend the utilization of this service, or you choose not to utilize it, it just doesn't work right, or you're just not a fan of it, right? What we could do is we come in here, we can remove this step that we created, the go to extra hands during the extra hands time entry into our main call sequence. Simply just check the box, in this case number 9, because we added it after step 8, so it became number 9. Select the box, put a check in it, and then click apply. It'll flat out delete that entire line, therefore no more calls routing to that submenu based on that schedule. You can keep the submenu, you can keep the schedule. Remember, it won't get used unless this rule is set up in the main call sequence to utilize those. So you don't necessarily have to delete the schedule or delete the submenu for extra dash hands. You can just remove it from your main call sequence. That will stop it from being utilized. And that way you can simply re-add it by adding one more line entry back into your main call sequence later down the road. That's it, and we're done. I hope that this was informative. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact support, open a ticket through your control panel, or jump into a live chat from fonality.com/support. I hope this was as fun for you as it was for me. Have yourself a great day, and thank you for choosing Fonality.